Okay, hello everyone, Mark Surgeon again, and today we will explore more things about the cat rig. So first of all, here is our model. The cat rig from the previous lesson is here. So if I press Shift G to turn off geometry temporarily, it's show hide geometry, Shift G, we can check what we have. So this is the structure that was created of a human character from cat library, and we still have a couple of things to do before we can actually start skinning. One thing, we can customize this rig to shape fit better with the mesh, because right now it's much more like a stick figure, and if we want to animate in the viewport just with the skeleton, if we have a little bit more detailed shapes of these body parts, it will be a great help. So that will be one thing. The other thing for today will be the method to create the jaw. And the jaw bone will be actually an independent bone and not a bone included of the cat rig. So first of all, let me create that bone. So I'm pressing Shift G to make sure that the geometry is visible, and press the right click to select object properties, because I want to check that yes, show frozen in gray is unticked. So I press OK and right click and just freeze selection. So now this one is frozen. Okay, I forgot to add the Alt X see-through mode and freeze it now. So freeze selection, that's it. Alright, so it's not clickable from now on. Right, we have to create a bone inside the head, and let me explain why we do this separately. So there is the head, and if we go to the modify panel, we have the chance to actually add a bone. Here's this simple button that's to add an extra bone. That could be work for our goal quite smoothly, but the problem is there's a slight problem. We want to have a control over this bone, an external control. Now these external controls are not working so well with the cat rig. So if you want to create and add tiny details for the face animated with bones, the best thing if you do a separate bone, not inside the bone system of the cat rig, but from the creation panel, utilities and bones. Alright, so this is the built-in bone system of 3dsmax itself, and it's not part of the cat rig. Now let me go to the left view and zoom out a bit, and here we go. This is our head mesh, and the bones are active, so I'm pressing left click, not pressing, not holding, and this will reach out till this point. Okay, don't forget, when you click on, you have to press the right click, and this will create an end cap for our bone. And because we don't want to create any more bones, we have to press the right click to exit from the process. Alright, now I'm not sure if the positioning of the bone is absolutely perfect, so F3, function key 3, now I have a shaded view. So what happens if I want to change the position of the bone, for example? If I'm selecting the bone and start moving it around, it will work fine. If I'm selecting the end, it's not stretching. So you have to recognize that this bone is somewhat rigid. It's a simple system. If you want to stretch it out, if you want to repose the bone while keep this end cap at its original position, you have to use something else. So let me undo my tiny movements and open up animation, and from animation what we do need is called bone tools. So bone tools will be here. Let me get this back into our frame. Okay, here we go, now it's visible. And when you click on bone edit mode will enable you to change the pivot. And as you see right now, it's pretty much like a stretchy bone, so you can just adjust the pivot point of this particular bone. Alright, it will be somewhere here, and okay, actually I'm pretty satisfied with this. Now a few other changes what we can do. So we can go to the perspective viewport. I just pressed P, and because this bone is kind of a sticky thing, so it's it's looking like a stick. It's nothing fancy here. We can add some, not volume, but volume indicators. I don't need bone edit mode right now to be turned off, because these are just visual changes. So let me go and enable side fins, increase the size of the side fins until it reaches the outer corner of the mouth. And you don't have to worry about these corners because there is something called taper. So here's the start taper. That's actually affecting the back side because start of the bone, alright? And end of the bone is here, so we have to reduce this end taper until we are just having this kind of a triangle shape. Okay, it's looking nice. We need another fin. It will be, I'm not sure, probably it will be a back fin. Yeah, back fin. So we can increase the size as well, and end taper, and it's here again, so we now need to reduce, or in this case increase the value to reduce the distance here. Okay, and it just covers our shape pretty well. Alright, let me close the bone tools because these editing steps are done, and right now we have no connection between the head and the bone. Okay, so if I start moving, I don't want to move the head because right now it's there's no animation set up. So if I'm moving any bones of the cat rig, it will actually alter the structure. Right now we are just in the base structural addition mode, so we don't want to accidentally move the bones or on purpose too. So what I have to do before starting and testing out the animation, I have to make the connections between these two. So the first bone is selected, and what you see here is actually, it's one practical bone and one end. But even if you have only one practical bone, you have to have some kind of a root. So the root is always, if you have one, that's the root itself. So this root could be linked to any other objects. If I have more bones, chain link bones are not really a smart idea to link anywhere else because you will break the chain. But root bones, the first initial bones, could be linked. So the bone is selected. I'm going up to the link, select and link operation, holding down left mouse button, and now there is a kind of a leash that indicates, okay, I'm in a linking process. So here's the child bone. Actually, it's like a dog is attached to the owner, and when I'm hovering over and I receive this highlight, I can release left mouse button, and then there's a small blink, small highlight, and that gives me the feedback that okay, now these two are linked. Okay, if you want to check this, we can switch to move mode, W. And if you want to check the linking without moving the part, here's a tiny tip. You can use page up and page down. So the jaw bone is selected and I'm pressing page up. It will select the parent bone. If I'm pressing page down, it will select the child bone. In this case, the child is the jaw bone. And if I'm pressing again page down, it will select the end cap, the closing bone of this part. Alright, now if there's a chance you might ask that why we have this particular bone outside of the model. It is because it will not take part in the movement itself. It is just for closing the chain. Alright, it's not cosmetic, it's a technical function that we want to keep, but because it's not part of the movement, we don't want to include it in the mesh. Okay, quite good. But let me tell you one more thing. So here's this bone. We can actually move this bone, selecting it directly. But to have a better shape, we can create a custom shape for this bone. But this custom shape is not really a version of this bone. It is a separate model that is somehow linked, connected with this particular one. Okay, well, let me do this quickly. And actually let me do some changes here. So going back to creation mode, and what we do need is a box, so that would be the jaw mesh. So left view, here it is. Let me add some thickness. Of course, this is just a half of it. I've pressed right click to exit the process. If it's hard to make for you, you can always go back Alt W and go to left viewport, and you can follow the process. So box, create the box here, and now here's interactively changing the thickness. So I'm pressing again a left click and right click, and here we go. So if you have issues with working just in a single left viewport, you can use the 4-view. Okay, let me go back Alt W and convert it quickly to an editable poly, because we have to create some basic shapes. Number 1 is the hotkey to switch to vertex mode. Number 2 is for edges. So number 3 is for borders. We don't have borders here, but number 4 is for polygons. I will use these hotkeys this time, but let me open this up, modifier stack, and there you will see what we have. But actually the icons are already appearing in the top right corner. Okay, so let me go back. Number 1, select these bottom vertices, go up here and just slightly change them. Here we don't need that much volume, so adding more. I'm just creating a pretty rough shape, so it's just for, at this stage, I don't have any concerns about accuracy. So let me select, I've selected everything. Go to rotation mode and start rotating. Okay, excuse me, start rotating along this yellow axis. Okay, that is actually the axis now, this one. So let me pull this back. Alright, probably this should be higher. This bounding box, sometimes this bounding box becomes a little bit disturbing, so what you can do is press J to turn this off. J, that's the hotkey in 3dsmax to turn off this feature. Okay, let me go back perspective. It's pretty nice. Alright, very simple, but fairly good. Okay, we can add probably an edge all along here. So let me go edge mode, select this one, Alt R to select the ring. Actually that is the ring here, this option. If you don't want to use the hotkeys for that, Alt R, and right click and connect these edges, and now we have some more room to edit these guys. Okay, so let me pull this a little bit higher, and this area too. Okay, and of course we need to add, and we need to have some kind of a symmetry. Just a tiny adjustments. Okay, so what we do need, edit poly, go and look for S symmetry, and the axis of symmetry is off, so let me switch to, in this case it will be Z axis. I don't need it to use any flip, so that will be the jaw part. That mesh is actually the jaw part. Maybe an aside here should be added, so I'm adding 4. Shift E is the extrusion, so I've added a tiny part. Switch to scale mode and just scale it up a little bit. Yep, the gizmo was a little bit small for me, and pull it back. Okay, so that would be the side. That's right. Now symmetry is there, everything's there. Right click, convert it back to editable poly, because I don't want to keep the symmetry as a separate modifier, so let me just check on that. And here we go. That's quite a nice thing. Now, right now there is no connection between this Joe reference, so I will call this Joe controller, or Joe mesh. Joe mesh. That will be Joe mesh. Okay. And what we have to do is, if we want to control this jaw bone, the movement of this jaw bone, with this controller, with this control mesh, we have to have the same pivot points for both. Now here's the deal. So the head is already, if I move the head, just let me temporarily move this, it will drag the bone because now these two are linked. The big question is, how can I make it possible that the bone is moving with the head, but the opening is depending on the position of this Joe mesh. Alright, so Joe mesh will control how this bone is oriented in the 3D space. The head will have an impact on how this bone is positioned in the 3D space. Now this positioning is coming from the linking. So because we use the link, no matter what, as we rotate and move this head around, it will drag and grab and hold silent this jaw bone. So what we need to build up a different type of connection between the jaw and the jaw bone, and it won't be a linked. It could not be a link relation. It has to be someone else. Now let me undo this movement. So here's the jaw bone, the jaw controller, and first of all I have to make sure that the pivot point of this jaw mesh is exactly the same as with the bone. So let me select the jaw mesh, let me select the bone, pressing Alt Q. Now I'm isolating those. It will be a little bit easier for me. So jaw is selected, and I don't want to accidentally move the jaw bone, for example. So what I can do, later on I will be able to lock down the movements. But first, make sure that the pivot points are matching. So here's the jaw bone. Jaw bone's pivot point is exactly at the tip of the bone, at where you start of the bone. We can go to the hierarchy, and within the hierarchy here at the top right, we have a system called affect pivot. Now we want to affect the pivot point of the jaw mesh. So jaw mesh is selected, and we want to move this pivot point to the orientation and location of the pivot point of the jaw bone. So let me turn on affect pivot only. Now I'm ready to move, but I don't want to guess. Okay, it's not a guesswork. I have to be very accurate with this, and for that I will use the align. Now here it is. Here's the align, this tiny icon. We have quick align, so let me hold down left mouse button, and it will open up the options, all of the options. The top two, we are interested in top two, and actually the very first, the standard align, that is what we are looking for. The hotkey for that is Alt A. So here's the mesh. Affect pivot only is active. I'm clicking on the jaw bone, and it will snap the pivot point of the jaw mesh to the jaw bone. But we are not there yet. We are pretty close, but we are not there yet. We have two ways to orient the pivot point. One way is to orient the position, retarget the position, and the other thing is adjusting the actual rotation and orientation in 3D space. So this one is already matching. Pivot point is matching. Now the pivot point is snapped, so we don't have to do anything with that. But we have to make sure that the orientation axes are also matching. So just make sure that everything is ticked here, and then click OK. And here we go. Now everything is matching. We can turn off affect pivot only. Why do we care? Because if I start rotating this jaw mesh, I have to make sure that the rotation is performed on the same axis as the bone has. So if I start rotating, and this rotation, at this case, it is the z-axis. But if it's not matching with the bone's own orientation, there could be an option that, let me just demonstrate it. So I'm rotating this way. I'm trying to open up, for example, the mouth. And if the if the axes are not matching, probably this is what may happen. So the wrong axis is connected, and it will perform a weird off movement like this. So I have to make sure that this alignment is done perfectly, And what you can do is to use the FF pivot and use the align for that. Let me undo these changes. Okay, I don't want to mess up things. So now these are on the same level. There is no connection yet. Okay, so there's no connection yet. The connection will be the following. So please select the bone. And this is a constraint. So what we have to do is to go up here at the animation area, animation, and it will be a constraint. It will be kind of a relation. And this relation will be called orientation constraint. Orientation constraint is a rotation constraint. So why do we care about this? Because the position of the jaw will be affected by the head. If you move the head, of course, you want to move the jaw with it. But if the mouth is open, that has to depend on the orientation, the rotation of the jaw mesh. And this is why we're activating the orientation constraint and clicking on the jaw mesh as the kind of a parent of this movement. And what you see on the right side in the motion panel, now we have an orientation constraint. That is, the weighting is by default is 100. So what does it makes? Again, temporarily moving. So I'm just testing. I'm not moving it anyway, just switching to rotation mode. And now I will open up this jaw. And now I'm moving the jaw mesh, and the jaw mesh now is act like a master of this one, and it will follow the changes. But let me demonstrate what we have. I can move away the jaw mesh, and it will not affect the position of the bone, all right, because that's a different information, and that is depending on the head. But I can still move, still rotate in the 3D space. And that was our goal. Okay, that was our goal. So let me undo and exit from isolation mode. Here's this tiny button, isolation mode. Okay, now let's take a look, test the things. So if I rotate the head, theoretically, it has to move the bone as well. So let me rotate the head. And yes, the bone is moving with that, but the bone is copying the orientation of the jaw mesh. Okay, interesting situation. So what we have to do, let me undo, Ctrl Z, select the jaw mesh, and now here's the trick. The jaw mesh will be linked to the head. And why is it good? Because it is a parent and child relation. Think of it like a dog on a leash. The dog has a minimal freedom, so she can walk up and down, sniffing around, but at the end of the day, the dog has to follow where the masters go. So this is a kind of a limited freedom. So here's the jaw bone, jaw mesh selected. Go up here at the selected link, hold down again, left mouse held down. The leash is visible. Make sure that you're hovering over the jaw, the head bone, releasing left mouse button. It will highlight for a sec, and now, again, just testing. We are not creating any animation poses now. We are just testing the rig. So moving this, and hey, the whole system is moving. If I move the head, everything is moving with the head. If I open up the jaw, it will open up, and it will open the bone too. Super cool. Okay, one more thing to test. So let me go back. Hey, this movement, we don't necessarily want this movement to be available. So what we have to do, we have to somehow restrict the movement of the jaw, because the only thing we want to do with the jaw mesh is rotation. So here's the head selected. We have the jawbone created. What we do need, select the jaw mesh and go to the hierarchy. And within the hierarchy, we have a link info. Now, link info has some features to lock unwanted movements. So let me lock X, Y, and Z movements, and let me lock scale X, Y, and Z. Okay, so that is a nice feature to have. So I can't really move now. Okay, there would be no accidental movements of this geomesh, but of course it is free to move when the parent moves. Okay, now pretty cool. We are close, but we are not there yet. What we do need is we need to change the shape of the head, because right now the shape of the head is simply just doesn't resemble the frog head. So we need to have a little bit better match. So how to do it? How to do it with any bone. So first, let me go here, object. This one is a cat bone. So from the modifier list, I will check and look for an edit poly function. So edit poly function, vertex, and what I do need, I think we need in edge mode, we need a double edge in the center. So Alt R, everything is selected, right click, connect with the window, so connect with the settings, connect edges, and let me add 2 to this. So right now we have 2 more inside, accept it, and probably we need another 2 here. So because the setting is the same, I can just click on connect, and now there's a few more. And switching back to vertex mode, select all these vertices here. I can go back to scale them up a little bit, select this particular polygon and pull it out, maybe even rotate it. Okay, it's fun. Select this polygon, lift this up. This right now, if I want to keep a symmetrical movement, my little trick is I like to switch to vertex mode, select the vertices on this side, select the vertices on this side, and I can't really move them symmetrically. But if I'm switching to scale mode, R, I can scale them symmetrically, fairly easy. All right, so it's a little bit, it's a handy thing to do. Okay, probably this one is too much, so let me select these 2 guys, switch back to move mode, select these because we need some room for the eyes. Okay, also here these 2, and pulling them back, and maybe extrude the front part. So number 4, polygon level is selected. Shift E to quickly select extrude. That's the hotkey for extrusion. W is switching back to move mode, and switching scale it down a little bit. Probably that's enough. All right, move it. Okay, here we go. So again, it's not 100% perfect, but if I'm turning off if I'm using Shift G and I'm turning off the 3D mesh, now it's much easier to recognize how this head is looking in the 3D space, and of course we will have eyes too. Shift G again. So we have the jaw, we have the head. Now everything is linked, but how to handle this edit poly here? So the edit poly is it's a pretty nice feature, but what happens if you want to go back and edit your bone? What happens if you want to see your actual cat rig parameters? The thing is the following. So first of all, you have to collapse this modifier. So right click, and I will go and select collapse to or collapse all. It doesn't matter at this stage, because collapse to is a 1 level collapsing, and we have only 1 level, so there's only 1 modifier. Or collapse all is actually a full. So if you have more and multiple modifiers, then it will collapse them all together. Now collapse all, and it will actually, you want to hold it. My suggestion is you don't have to press hold every time, but in this case, time after time, please use the hold, because when you're collapsing this editable poly, some weird things might happen. Okay, so hold, yes. Now, and at the moment, in a moment when you're collapsing them, you will get back to the object. You will get back to the parameters. You will have the adjustability. Despite you have this unique shape of the bone, you still have these values live. And here something happens, a tiny update. This show custom mesh is checked. So if you turn this off, you will get back to your original model. Alright, so this is how it works. Now, if you have something that is symmetrical, so just let me very quickly create something. Modifier list, edit poly, and edge, select all the edges, and go and look for chamfer. It's better visible because of the base color, but I don't want to change the base color of the bone. So I've just added a simple chamfer. Want to make this bone look a bit more rounded. Let me take this, let me connect it, switch to scale mode, let me select these bones, connect them also, so edges, and connect them. Okay, add some other things, maybe we can move them, vertex mode, move them. And if you want to make it even nicer, you can create some end caps, like switching to polygon mode. Number 4, select the end cap, Shift E to switch to extrusion, extrude it tiny, right click, exit from extrusion, switch to R to scale mode, and uniformly scale them down. Okay, so here we go, select it again, Shift E, extrude, switch to scale mode, scale it down. So now you have a kind of a ballpoint bone. Now, okay, so if you want to make it more true to the original mesh, you can do that, but let me tell you a tiny trick. Before you're actually specializing the bone or creating too many unique features of your bone, you can save some time by dragging this editable poly modifier, dragging onto the next bone of yours, and it will pick up the same shape. Okay, now it's not 100% the same because it will recognize the size of the original bone. Alright, so it can save you a lot of time, but it's a good idea to create a couple bones here and there, and before you're actually finalizing the things, make these adjustments. So for example, here's the finger, edit poly. And the typical processes I like to do regarding the fingers, so all bones are selected, all edges are selected, right click, we need a chamfer, a very tiny chamfer, so let me just carefully adjust this chamfer. It's pretty hard, alright, let me accept this. We need 2 connecting edges, so instead of 1 set, I've adjusted it to 2, so now we have 2 running edges, and we need the end caps. So number 4, Shift E, tiny extrusion, R, and pulling it back, and Shift E, and pulling it back. Okay, so here it is, this is the base, and then I can copy this base all around. So drag, drop, drag and drop everywhere. Okay, so of course then you have to walk through and convert everything. Yeah, now fingers are not the easiest thing to work with. Well, let me tell you how to make it a little bit easier. So when you select the mesh and you want to scale it in position and move it in position, for example, because the finger itself is angled in the 3D space, it's pretty much a challenge to move it around. So if I'm moving, as you see, the gizmo is try to match the world coordinates. So if I'm moving this one, it will be a little bit off. If I try to move it upwards, it will be off here too. So what we can do is we can switch the coordinate system. So in the view mode, we are now in the view mode. We can scroll and open this up and look for parent. Okay, parent means it will make and it will try to copy the position of the overall mesh. Okay, it is the object's orientation in the 3D space. All right, so now we can move along here. We can switch to scale mode, and as you see, if you switch back to move mode, it will switch back to parent. If you switch to scale mode, it will switch back to view. So you can and you have to adjust this independently. So view mode, switch to local mode, and now we have the scale with local mode. So we can scale it up, and it's nice. I can switch to move mode and make the changes I'm looking for. So here it is. Again, scale it up, switch to move mode. I can drag it around and make a better fit. Alright, so this thing, once you made these adjustments, then you can select any other bones and select vertices, and you don't have to worry about this moving stuff. It's fairly easy because it will maintain it will try to maintain the orientation of the model's 3D location. So yeah, I was accidentally selected at this point. This is why we had this weird look. So moving on. Okay, now imagine that we managed to shape all of the elements. Okay, all, not just the head, not just arms, but everything. What we can do, because of course you might already recognize, I hope so, that I was working only on one side of the mesh. So what I can do, I can copy the settings, copy these meshes, so these meshes will be included in my copy, and paste them on the opposite side. But to do that, I will first flatten the elements. So select the bone, and sorry, you have to do it one by one. Okay, now this is a time when you want to save. Alright, I will not save because I don't want to overwrite the file here, but save for yourself, save on a different name, to make sure that before you're starting to collapsing these things, you have a solid and working model saved. So right click, collapse all, and hold yes. It's asking, do I want? I will choose hold, and there is a chance that in this case it was generous with me, but there's a chance that when you make this collapse, it will flip the bone. So actually it will look like the bone is just disappearing, but actually the bone is there, it's just flipped over. If you experience that, so I will try to find a problem. Okay, now it's working perfectly fine, but in some cases it is not. Let me collapse. Okay, in that case this is what you can do. So just let me do it verbally. So if you see that somehow the bone is flipping over, what you have to do is press Ctrl Z, undo. It will give you the editable poly, it will give it back, and then do it again. So the trick, if you see this bug, that you are selecting the model, converting it, you can actually convert it into editable poly, and it will flip. Just press undo and do it again. Convert editable poly. Alright? I don't really recommend to do these conversions simultaneously. So I think it's better to do them one by one. And time after time, don't forget to use a hold. Now, if you have a hold issue and if you want to go back, the way to go back is Ctrl Alt and F. Ctrl Alt and F. I don't want to use the fetch now, but when you have a frame, put it on a hold, you can always revert back to that scene by Ctrl Alt and F, and it will give you the fetch option to get back to your model. Alright, I don't want to do this now, but I'm definitely looking for a solution to copy and paste the content. So let me select the collarbone. And I don't have to double click. Double click is selecting everything. Collarbone is the root of the arm, so it will automatically be recognized as a root here. and this one is a right part, right side of the figure. And what you have to know that when you're copying things, you can copy the entire limb in the limb setup area, or you can copy the bone itself. Right now, we don't want to copy the bone. We are not really interested. We are interested in copying everything of the limb. So be careful. Go to the limb setup, make a copy, then switch to the opposite side. And it's already recognizing that you are on the left side, and paste mirror limb settings will get you to this position. All right. It takes a couple hours to complete this. Explore it yourself. It's not a necessity to do all the details. I like to include the rib cage and the thighs because these are quite big. And if you're interacting with objects, you want to see where's the chest, even if you don't have the mesh around. Okay, so this is why rib cage and thighs should be important. Thank you very much for your time now, and we will follow with the skidding in the next lesson. And congratulations, and see you next time. Goodbye.